Welcome everybody, this is Tim Watrous, President of Digital Advisors.
And this is Kevin Gordon, President of Capital Advisors Group.
We'd like to welcome you to our K-12 Politics and Tech video series.
Our objective is to give you the absolute latest of what's going on in Sacramento that affects public school districts, obviously, and as well as all the technology stuff that's going on that's so vital to delivering for kids these days.
And remember, if you find these videos useful, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and share out over social media. You're our marketing team. We appreciate your support, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, welcome everybody. Tim Watrous, President of Digital Advisors, back with another episode of K-12 Politics and Tech. As always, Kevin Gordon, co-host of the show, is here. Kevin, great to see you again.
Yep, it's got some good news. So,
yeah, I know we've been waiting for this. And by the way, Kevin's president of Capital Advisors. I failed to mention that, but those of you who watch frequently know this, of course. Kevin, I know. Just start real quick. We're going to run through the budget today, the just approved budget. But you have your budget workshops coming up. Can you just talk about that a little bit for those that don't know?
So yeah, so before we jump into a lot of the detail on this, I did want to mention the budget workshops, which are on our website, so capitaladvisors.org. They're open to anybody. You can take a look at whichever one actually meets your schedule. But if you want to prefer to be involved with the one that's in your county, you can look for that, register, and you'll be included in what will be a really good webinar that checks the boxes. The other thing is I don't think this is going to take as long as our normal workshops do, because again, we're reviewing what's sort of already been discussed at length and really reporting to you on what ultimately happened. So yeah, we really want you guys to sign up for this budget workshop, and you're going to really find out exactly what has happened. But we'll give a little thumbnail today.
Thanks, Kevin. And yeah, just want to like exactly what you said. There's already been a lot of discussion. In fact, I think there's been at least 2 or 3 budgets that have been approved. If you've been watching the headlines, we've talked about them, but how many budgets can be approved in 1 year is the question mark. But yeah, Kevin, maybe start there. And I know there's a lot of impacts on base funding. Can you walk us through that, please?
Yeah. Well, first, to your original comment, it does seem like every week there's an announcement that they've done something big on the budget. And it's because, you know, in their minds they have. So the first thing was the Senate and the Assembly did something uncharacteristic, which they both got together essentially in private and said, let's just agree on a budget instead of a budget conference committee. So when they announced that they were together on a budget, that's great. The only problem is it didn't involve a negotiation with the governor. So then when they get together with the governor and they get the outlines of a budget with him, they announce that with great fanfare. And then of course, when they pass the budget, then they announced that with great fanfare. And then when the governor signed the budget yesterday, yet another round of press. And people are looking at it going, now I thought this is old news. And some of it is at least a week old in terms of, because we've gotten Trader Bill language, we know what's in it. We know it's part of the agreement, but it is good to know, finally put to bed, passed, signed, done. And the fiscal year starts right away. So this is all going to be going into effect. So, but to your question about base funding, you know, because we've talked about it so many times on this program, that we put this huge emphasis on raising the base funding. And there's attention paid to this in a very big way in the budget, but we don't want them to lose sight of the fact that there are other ways that this budget invests money that's ongoing permanent money that will affect base funding for public school districts. And so some of those things we've got listed here. But I'll start first with regard to what we call the LCFF base. And that by itself is going up extraordinarily high. Many of you know that when the legislature put out their version, they wanted to essentially, when all things are totaled up, a 16% increase to the LCF base. The governor was at about 10%. We knew we probably weren't going to end up with 16%. And of course, like all politics, where did it end up? Right in the middle, a roughly 13% increase to the LCFF base. And they did it in 2 parts. They fund the 6.56% COLA, and then they throw a slightly over 6.2% sort of sweetener on top of that to adjust the LCFF base upward. But again, we can all do simple math. You add those numbers and you get close to a 13% increase. All told, with all the adjustments they did, we're talking about almost a $9 billion increase to base funding, just when you talk about the ADA changes and also what we did on LCFF base. Biggest increase in my entire career, no question about it. It makes big progress, and the numbers haven't been run yet, but it will absolutely make big progress on what our standing is nationally on per pupil funding. And the reason why is because we have a very progressive tax system. Other states are not doing what's happening in California. There's other states that frankly are flat or cutting, or they don't have the kind of revenues coming into their treasury that then get allocated over to education the way we've been doing it. So our standing should increase very significantly as a result of this budget. Overall, an unbelievable budget for education. No question, an all-time record setter.
Wow. Well, I guess those buttons, the raise the base buttons, helped a little bit, and that campaign certainly did. And I guess I just want to take a moment to notice that most of the time we're on this show reporting the things that aren't going quite right. And here we go with a budget that's passed on time and actually passed on time. And then, like you said, they actually got the numbers right on this. So, congratulations to Sacramento. Thank you for getting it right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the work that you and the Capital Advisors team have done and all the advocacy folks around the state. Obviously, that work has paid off. So, Kevin, the other thing that we've been talking a lot about is the ADA relief. And everyone's been struggling with this. This has been something that could go wrong as well. But can you tell us how that landed?
So just as you noted, this was one of those issues that they could have gone very wrong and frankly looked like it was headed toward not getting resolved the way we would have wanted. There are two components to the whole ADA issue. One is the long-term effort to address ADA decline by going to a 3-year rolling average. That had really good support across the board. Mike Fine from FCMAT played a really important role in getting that paid attention to. And it really became the vernacular of many people in education finance. That was the right thing to do. But the problem is most immediately was that this really anomalous drop in attendance that we've seen, that's really sort of still an attribute of COVID, needed to get addressed. So I always refer to it as a current year fix, that we needed the rolling average, 3-year rolling average, and a current year fix. And that's exactly what the legislature ended up doing. And most people that are watching this, that pay attention to the kinds of things, Tim, that you and I talk about, have followed this debate and were probably as nervous as we were about whether or not this was going to get done, because there was definitely opposition to this in some quarters of the legislature. But in the final negotiations with the governor, it ended up staying in. Thanks. This administration really supported that idea of doing both, the 3-year rolling average and the current year fix. We got it. By the way, that total price tag for that combination is $2.8 billion. So you talk about the total $9 billion of boost to base funding in LCFF. That's a real important ingredient of it, and it wasn't cheap. So they stepped up the plate. They did that. It's going to be very, very important for our schools all across California.
Thanks for that, Kevin. And I guess one of the other massive things, and I'll just say it is massive, there's 2 block grants, significant amount of one-time money headed to schools. Can you just break those down for us, please?
You bet. So you've got the bigger of the 2 block grants, $8 billion, and it is a staggering figure. We've never seen anything quite like that. The only sort of caveat there is it's going to get distributed on a per ADA basis, but the ADA are going to be per every student that's unduplicated. Now, virtually every district in the state has kids in poverty or an English language learner or foster youth. You've got kids in those categories, but obviously some districts have very, very lower numbers than perhaps other districts do. So it is going to have that dimension to it. So, those districts that have really high unduplicated counts are going to do extremely well under that particular block grant. And that block grant is really aimed at learning supports. And another issue we're going to talk about a little bit later is staffing and some of the issues about the challenges of hitting some of the ratios that are required in terms of pupil to student, rather teacher to pupil ratios that are going to be harder to kind of get to. But a number of those learning support issues, districts based on the kids that you have, the ADA you have that are unduplicated count, are going to get that. Now, the consolation is that I would have been pretty concerned about that, except there's this other pot of money, $3.5 billion, that goes out on a strictly ADA basis all across the state. So we're not talking about an unduplicated count kind of dimension to it. Everybody gets it. And that is interesting because it says arts, music, and instructional materials block grant. But they included 2 things in it that almost undermine those other things. Your arts community are going to be grumpy in your district because it also allows you to spend that money on other operational expenses, sort of very broad, and then also increase retirement costs that the districts are going to have to shoulder. Well, we know that the STRS and PERS increase is not addressed outside of Prop 98. They basically say, handle it with some of this money that we're going to be giving you inside of Prop 98. It's not what we would have wanted, but it's something. And the problem is it's probably so significant that it's going to dwarf the opportunities for the things that this block grant was even named after. But you're going to have the ability to spend it on retirement issues and, again, operational kinds of expenses. So those are the two big block grants. Again, it's a huge amount of money. Even the $3.5 billion block grant, if it had just been on its own, it was the only block grant, would be considered, in the magnitude of these block grants that we've seen by the state in the past. So certainly a significant amount of money. Everybody gets that, including our community funded districts as well, which is really, really important.
Well, thank you for that, Kevin. Both of those block grants are very much welcome, and there'll be a lot more information on that in those the budget workshops that the Capital Advisors team will be hosting in next week, I believe. So, Kevin, there's two more items on this first list that we'll just jump through quickly. One is transportation. The second is special education. Can you jump into both of those, please?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to mention these because, as I said before, these have an impact on the bottom line in a school district. Obviously, to the extent that for the first time in, I think, 30 years, they're actually taking the idea of getting more money injected into school transportation is important. There was a major debate in the Capitol building about transportation funding being just some sort of a mandate without a guarantee of the money. And then you had Assemblymember Patrick O'Donnell, chair of the Ed Committee, saying, no, we need to say, let's get some money into the system. Let's make this more incentive-based. We're going to boost what is about 30% offsets of transportation funding for homeschool transportation of those districts that are running it to get that up to 60%. And that'll create incentives for districts to reconsider participating in that program. In addition, applying a COLA to these programs, which I think is really important, so that when you do that, we get to a total of about 60% funding for the homeschool transportation is what they're committed to. And I think that number could potentially go up in future years, but it's great that they're paying attention to it. On special education, we're always saying that we need to do more for base rates. They do this in this budget. It's consistent with January as well as the May revision. It takes base rates up to $820 per kid on special ed.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for both of those pieces of welcome information. There'll be more news on that in your budget workshops that are coming up next week. And I just want to jump in and say there's two issues that you will definitely need to address with some of that block grant money. I know everyone's top of mind right now is safety. And then the other thing that's looming is teacher shortages. And I know, Kevin, there's some work going on in Sacramento to help, lower the bar of entry for teachers to be able to teach, and to be approved to do so. We'll actually be covering that in a future episode. But just thinking about the block grant to leverage technology to help you offset some of these teacher shortages, which we know are coming. That's a great way to think about investing some of those dollars. And the other thing is to have a little bit more comprehensive approach to security and safety, leveraging some technology tools that exist today that maybe hadn't in the past, and gluing some systems together and departments together to have a comprehensive safety plan. Something that's definitely worth thinking about investing those block grant dollars in. And we'll not spend too much time on that, but I'll just say, if you're getting those dollars and you're thinking about where to get your team thinking and planning, those are two areas that are time well spent, because those are major issues that are going to be tricky for you to navigate here in the near future. So with that, Kevin, I know there's some serious governors initiatives that were layered into the budget that just passed. Can you walk us through some of those major initiatives that are going to be meaningful to districts this year?
Sure. And I think the governor probably would have preferred us to start out with these because they are what I call his signature initiatives. But there's stuff that started out even last year. We saw them again reiterated in the January budget. We saw them again in the May revision, but they are the major piece of the budget. Also gigantic parts of the expenditure that are going to now be part of K-12 education. And now I should actually put that correctly. What will now be referred to as pre-K-12. And the governor's office kind of put a little emphasis on this in a press release they just put out yesterday. So the pre-K initiative, obviously being the biggest one, $2.7 billion by the time it's fully implemented over multiple year. Mostly no changes to that, but the governor gets that and it's well underway. Also the universal meal program an expensive investment to make sure that every kid has access to meals, regardless of what kind of income there is. That is just a major effort that the governor has. And then finally, the expanded learning opportunity program, which he did actually, amazingly to me, compromise, took about $800 million less than he had envisioned, both in January and the May revision, to have a $4 billion essential investment in that program. Now, he was accelerating that because it was going to be a multi-year phase in, and he wanted to get it all done in a single year. But they did prune that back a little bit to $4 billion, but still major part of the governor's, vision, his platform for really transforming public education with those big investments. So I call them the governor's signature initiatives, and we will cover those in detail in the budget workshops as well.
Well, thanks for that, Kevin. And again, lots of great news on this budget this year. And hopefully for those of you that are about to go on vacation, that's some welcome news to help you or keep you at ease as you go on these vacations with your family. Kevin, I wanted to bring up, I know we've talked about it before, but USC, the Innovative District Leadership Academy, the work that we do with them to help leadership teams tackle challenges that they're facing in their district. We actually have a new cohort launching. It's being hosted by Riverside County Office of Ed and San Bernardino County Office of Ed. Starts in Southern California in September with a face-to-face kickoff. The rest is going to be online till June. We'll do another June face-to-face meeting at a conference there in mid-June. And then we'll wrap up by the end of August to get everybody back into school. So I wanted to bring that up because there's only 40 slots available. I think there's already 6 or so people registered for the upcoming cohort. And if you're interested, please jump on the website. We'll have the link to that. We'll have a brochure. Kevin and his team have been very kind to participate and help us, teach the folks that are in this course. But just bring a group of leaders from your district, have a challenge that you're trying to overcome, ready to go, and we'll help you through the course of the year solve that challenge, connect you to a network of really wonderful, like-minded folks, top thought leaders, and give you the tools and resources that you need to help solve those problems. So want to say that, please jump on the website, check out the flyer, and go ahead and get registered soon. Once we fill up that 40, we'll be moving on to a January cohort. So want to say thank you to Kevin for joining us today. Wonderful news about the budget. Please don't forget to sign up for those workshops as well, the budget workshops. And we hope you all have a great time until we see you next time. Thank you.
Right. Thanks so much, Tim.
So thanks again for joining us for another week of this broadcast.
And I just want to take a moment to remind you, if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and share this out over social media. Again, you're our marketing team. I'll also finish by saying, if you have some questions, please send them our way. We'd be happy to address them on a future broadcast. So with that, thanks everybody, and we'll talk soon.